The horizon was barely lit by the feeble light of dawn as the first whispers of morning broke over the small western town. A bitter chill clung to the air, a cold, unyielding reminder of the harsh world that lay beyond the crumbling facades of weathered wooden buildings. The sky, a murky blend of deep blues and ashen grays, hinted at the promise of another relentless day. In the distance, a faint ghostly glow of diffused light began to creep along the edges of the horizon, as if nature itself were reluctant to let go of the dark night. Amidst this somber scene, the town's narrow streets lay quiet, their silence broken only by the soft, echoing creaks of old wooden sidewalks and the mournful whistle of the wind as it danced through the empty alleys. At the heart of this bleak landscape, Martha Puit emerged like a solitary figure carved from sorrow and determination. With each step, her heart pounded a painful rhythm, a mix of despair and the fierce, burning will to escape the torment that had defined her life for too long. Clad in a faded, threadbare cloak that did little to ward off the biting cold, Martha's eyes held a depth of emotion that belied her outwardly fragile appearance. They shimmered with unshed tears, reflecting the scars of a past filled with unspoken abuse and relentless suffering. Every inch of her being resonated with the agony of leaving behind the only home she had ever known, a home that had instead been a prison of pain, where echoes of cruelty and harshness haunted every creaking floorboard. Her footsteps, hesitant, yet resolute, carried her toward the only escape she could envision, a train that promised a new beginning, far from the oppressive shadows of her old life. As she walked, the sound of the wooden planks beneath her feet provided a steady, rhythmic accompaniment to her tumultuous thoughts. Each creak seemed to punctuate the unspoken story of abuse and heartache, a story that had long been kept hidden behind a mask of forced composure. The cold wind whipped around her, carrying with it the sharp scent of frost and decay, mingling with the faint metallic tang of early morning dew. It was a sensory onslaught that brought every painful memory to the forefront of her mind. Martha's inner world was a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. Shame gnawed at her, a persistent reminder of the indignity she had been forced to endure. Fear, too, was a constant companion, whispering of dangers yet unseen, and of the uncertainty that lay ahead. But beneath these dark clouds of despair, there burned an ember of defiance, a steadfast determination to break free from the cycle of violence that had imprisoned her soul. Each step forward was an act of rebellion against a past that had tried to define her, a declaration that she would no longer allow the wounds inflicted by those who had hurt her to dictate her future. As she neared the town's train station, the atmosphere shifted subtly. The dilapidated structure of the station, with its sagging roof and dimly lit interior, seemed to offer a brief sanctuary from the relentless cold. The soft, diffused light that filtered through grimy windows cast long shadows on the worn floorboards, creating a tapestry of light and dark that mirrored the tumult within Martha's heart. The ambient sounds, a distant murmur of conversation, the occasional clatter of a loose door, the rhythmic ticking of a neglected clock, combined with the persistent howl of the wind to form a melancholic symphony that underscored her journey. Inside, the station was sparse yet filled with a quiet, unspoken warmth. Faint traces of lingering coal smoke mingled with the aroma of old wood and the subtle hint of oil from the lanterns that hung on the walls. Here, every detail spoke of lives lived on the margins, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who had braved the harsh realities of frontier existence. In that humble refuge, Martha found herself standing at the threshold of a new chapter, where the promise of escape was as tangible as it was uncertain. Her eyes, though red and puffy from suppressed tears, burned with a steely resolve that betrayed the vulnerability hidden beneath. She paused at the door of the station, her heart heavy with the weight of the past, yet buoyed by the possibility of redemption. In that charged moment, the silent interplay of light and shadow seemed to narrate a story of both pain and hope, a story in which every ending was also the beginning of something new. The soft glow of the early dawn caressed her features, highlighting the subtle determination etched into her expression, and the quiet strength that had carried her this far. With a final deep breath that trembled with both apprehension and fierce hope, Martha stepped forward into the waiting interior of the station. As the door swung open, she was momentarily bathed in a mix of dim, cool light and the promise of warmth from within, a symbolic threshold between a past marred by sorrow and a future yet to be written. Her face, partially hidden in the shadow of her hood, revealed a delicate interplay of anguish and resolve, a poignant reminder of the cost of her escape and the hope that lay just beyond. And so, standing at the gateway to an uncertain destiny, Martha Puit's journey began anew. Every creaking step echoed with the memories of her tortured past, yet each one also carried the unyielding promise of a fresh start, a chance to leave behind the pain and to forge a path toward freedom and healing. As she took her place among the sparse figures waiting at the station, her eyes remained fixed on the distant horizon, where the light of dawn merged with the lingering shadows of night, leaving an unspoken question suspended in the chilly air. What fate awaited her on the other side of this threshold? In that moment, the station door closed behind her, sealing off the remnants of a life defined by abuse and sorrow, and opening the door to a future that shimmered with both peril and possibility. The soft murmur of the approaching train, its engine a low, constant promise of departure, resonated in the silence, a haunting prelude to the next chapter of Martha's journey, where every moment held the potential for both redemption and heartache. The train station exuded a comforting warmth against the harsh chill of the early morning. Nestled among a cluster of modest wooden houses, the station stood as a beacon of refuge amid the rugged expanse of the frontier. Weathered wooden beams, darkened by years of wind and rain, framed the building, while the soft glow of oil lamps and a crackling stove offered a gentle luminescence that defied the bleakness outside. Faint smoke curled from the chimney, and the delicate scent of burning wood mixed with the crisp aroma of frost, creating an atmosphere that was both nostalgic and inviting. Martha stepped through the station's creaking door and was immediately greeted by the cordial smile of Mr. Bellum, a kindly old man who had long been a fixture of the town. His gentle eyes, twinkling with a mixture of wisdom and quiet empathy, spoke volumes without a single word. "Welcome, Miss Puit," he said warmly, his voice resonating with genuine care. "Come in, have a seat by the stove and warm yourself. The cold outside can be unkind." As Martha followed his inviting gesture, she felt for a brief moment that she might just belong somewhere again, a stark contrast to the desolation of her past. Inside, the station was a small haven of light and sound. The low murmur of soft conversations among a few locals filled the space, while the rhythmic crackle of the stove punctuated the quiet. The furniture, though simple, was arranged with a sense of care and hospitality that made Martha's weary heart flutter with a mixture of relief and cautious hope. She sank into a well-worn wooden bench, her eyes lingering on the gentle play of shadows and light across the room. In that quiet space, the past and the future seemed to meet, a silent promise of solace amid the lingering memories of pain. It was then that Mr. Bellum produced a letter from a neatly stacked pile of mail on the counter. "I believe you have a letter here, Miss Puit," he said, extending his hand with a small, knowing smile. Martha's heart skipped a beat as she accepted the envelope, its paper crisp and unassuming. The return address caught her eye immediately: Bart Wilson, Sweetwater, Arkansas. As her trembling fingers carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter, a rush of emotion surged through her. The neatly penned words of Bart spoke of a future filled with love, security, and the promise of a new beginning, a stark contrast to the life of turmoil and abuse she had known for so long. Bart's letter was a balm to her battered soul. He described the rustic beauty of his cattle ranch, the camaraderie of life on the frontier, and most importantly, his sincere wish to build a life with a kind and resilient woman. His words, simple yet imbued with hope, painted a picture of a life that was entirely different from the oppressive darkness of her past. "My dear Martha," the letter began, "I have longed to find a partner with whom I can share both the joys and the trials of this life. I believe you possess the strength and gentleness that can transform hardship into hope. Will you consider a future with me? A future where love and safety are not just dreams, but realities?" Each carefully chosen phrase resonated deeply within Martha, stirring a glimmer of possibility she had almost forgotten existed. As she read, a cascade of conflicting emotions washed over her. The memories of her past, filled with fear, pain, and the cold indifference of a life marked by violence, clashed with the tender promise of a new beginning. Martha's heart, once weighed down by the heavy burden of sorrow, began to flutter with cautious optimism. Yet, even as a fragile hope bloomed within her, there was an underlying tremor of doubt. Could she truly abandon the haunted memories of her old life? Would the promise of a loving future be enough to mend the deep-seated wounds that had long defined her existence? The gentle murmur of the stove, the soft glow of the oil lamps, and the comforting presence of Mr. Bellum provided a temporary shelter for her swirling thoughts. Outside, the chill of the early winter continued its relentless assault, but within the station's walls, there was a sanctuary of warmth and solace. Martha's eyes, still glistening with unshed tears, now shone with a mixture of longing and determination. In that luminous space, the duality of her world was laid bare, the dark memories of a tormented past, and the tender promise of a future where love could be a refuge. Her mind played over the gentle cadence of Bart's words, each line painting an image of a life free from the terrors that had once defined her. She envisioned the sprawling, sunlit fields of Sweetwater, the vibrant colors of a ranch awakening in the dawn, and the steady companionship of a man who offered not just protection, but genuine affection. It was as if each word on the paper was a seed of hope, ready to bloom into something beautiful if only she dared to nurture it. Yet the lingering shadow of her past was not so easily dismissed. Martha recalled the harshness of her former home, the echo of broken promises, the painful memory of her stepfather's cruelty, and the relentless cycle of abuse that had left scars too deep to forget. These memories clashed with the promise of a fresh start, and she found herself teetering on the edge of despair and hope. The very thought of leaving behind the familiarity of her pain was both terrifying and liberating. As the soft murmur of conversation resumed and the warmth of the station began to soothe her aching soul, Martha made a decision. The tender hope offered by Bart Wilson was more than just a glimmer in the darkness. It was a lifeline. In that moment, under the gentle, reassuring gaze of Mr. Bellum and in the serene glow of the station's interior, Martha resolved to leave behind the shadows of her past. The letter was not merely a promise, it was a call to action, a summons to embrace a future where love and safety could flourish, where the wounds of yesterday might finally begin to heal. Clutching the letter close to her heart, Martha rose from the bench with a newfound determination that radiated from her eyes. The emotional weight of her past would not define her any longer. With every step she took toward the door, the ambient sounds of the station, the creak of wood, the gentle crackle of the fire, seemed to echo her resolve. As she stepped outside, the cold air greeted her like a challenge, yet she met it with a steady gaze and a quiet promise to herself. In that final, poignant moment, as Martha approached the train platform, her face was a study in contradiction. Beneath the veil of sorrow lay a spark of hope so fierce it threatened to outshine the darkness. Her expression, partially hidden beneath the brim of her worn hat, conveyed both the lingering pain of her past and the resolute determination to seize a new beginning. The distant sound of an approaching train mingled with the soft, persistent hum of the wind, underscoring the gravity of her decision. Standing at the threshold of the station, with the promise of the train symbolizing her escape, and the dawning of a future yet unwritten, Martha's eyes shone with both vulnerability and defiance. In that charged moment, every whispered memory of abuse and every tear shed in solitude transformed into a silent vow, a vow to embrace the life that awaited her at Bart's ranch, no matter the uncertainties ahead. And so, with the final echo of the station door closing behind her, Martha Puit stepped into the unknown. Her journey from a life of torment toward a horizon filled with hope had only just begun, leaving an unspoken question lingering in the frosty air. What fate awaited her on this new path, where every moment promised both peril and possibility? Martha's footsteps faltered on the frost-bitten pavement as she finally stepped away from the house that had been both her prison and her tormentor. The once familiar structure, now shrouded in the harsh glare of a winter morning, loomed like a grim reminder of all the pain she had endured. Every creak of the old wooden boards underfoot echoed with memories of angry shouts and the clatter of broken dishes. The biting wind whipped across the desolate street, carrying with it the ghostly remnants of a life filled with cruelty, a constant painful reminder of Charles Mills's violent outbursts that had long scarred her soul. As Martha walked, the world around her seemed both vast and unyielding. The town streets, lined with modest buildings worn down by time and hardship, bore silent witness to countless stories of struggle and survival. In the distance, the low hum of conversation and the occasional suspicious glance from passers-by only deepened her sense of isolation. Each face that caught her eye seemed to hold a mix of pity and uncertainty, as if they too were haunted by the whispers of violence that had once echoed from her home. The cold was relentless, and with every step, Martha felt the chill seeping into her bones. But the physical cold was nothing compared to the internal frost that had gripped her for so long. Memories of her stepfather's tirades flooded her mind. Visions of Charles Mills, his face contorted with rage, as he hurled insults and shattered the fragile calm of their home with every smashed plate and broken promise. The recollections were as vivid as if they were happening all over again. The sound of his booming voice, the sharp impact of his anger, and the terror that had once immobilized her. Even as she moved further away from that dreadful place, those memories clung to her like shadows, unwilling to let go. Her thoughts swirled in a tumultuous dance of fear and determination. Martha questioned every step. Was it foolish to think that escape could ever lead to a life free from such torment? Yet deep within her, a defiant spark refused to be extinguished. That spark, though fragile, was fueled by a yearning for safety, dignity, and a future unburdened by the horrors of her past. It was the same ember that had urged her to seek refuge in the promise of Bart Wilson's letter, a promise of a new beginning on a distant, welcoming ranch where love might mend the deep-seated wounds of her soul. As she walked, the whispers of the townsfolk reached her ears, snatches of conversation laden with cautious curiosity. "There goes that poor girl again," one voice murmured, while another remarked, "I wonder what she's running from this time." Their hushed tones, heavy with judgment and pity, only added to the weight of her memories. Every glance cast in her direction was a silent question, a reminder that in this small town, no secret ever stayed hidden for long. Yet, even amid this scrutiny, Martha pressed on, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. The constant tension of being watched, of being the subject of idle gossip, magnified her internal struggles, but also steeled her resolve to break free from the chains of her past. In the midst of this inner turmoil, flashbacks of violent encounters with Charles emerged unbidden. She remembered the cold, hard slap of reality when he lost control, the echo of his harsh words mingled with the sound of shattered glass, and the terror that had made her want to vanish into thin air. The memories were bitter and raw, each one a reminder of the shame and helplessness that had once dominated her life. Yet, with every painful recollection, there was also a growing awareness, a realization that the only way to truly heal was to leave those memories behind and step boldly into an uncertain yet hopeful future. The winter landscape itself seemed to mirror her inner conflict. The barren streets and leafless trees, their branches etched starkly against a pale sky, evoked the desolation she felt inside. The crunch of ice underfoot, the intermittent gusts of wind that carried the faint scent of wood smoke from nearby homes. All these sensory details wove together to create a vivid, cinematic tapestry of loss and longing. It was as if the world around her had become a reflection of her battered heart, a place where beauty and brutality coexisted in an eternal struggle. Despite the relentless barrage of negative memories, a subtle transformation began to take place within Martha. With each determined step away from the oppressive confines of her past, she felt a slight easing of the burden that had weighed on her for so long. The fear that had once paralyzed her now sparked a cautious optimism, a tentative belief that she was worthy of a life free from terror. In her mind, the promise of Bart Wilson's words glimmered like a distant lighthouse, guiding her toward a future where safety and love were possible. That hope was fragile, like the first light of dawn breaking through a stormy sky, yet it was enough to compel her forward. As she neared the town's modest train station, the environment shifted subtly. The station, with its creaking wooden sign and soft, welcoming glow of oil lamps, offered a stark contrast to the icy hostility of the streets. Here, there was a hint of warmth and community, a small haven where one could momentarily forget the cruelty of the past. The building's weathered walls, adorned with simple decorations and the occasional handwritten notice, exuded a sense of resilience, as if the very structure had borne witness to many souls seeking refuge from life's harshness. Martha's heart quickened as she approached the platform, her eyes reflecting both trepidation and an emerging determination. The soft murmur of the few early risers, the comforting crackle of a nearby stove, and the gentle smile of a familiar face in the crowd, all these details coalesced into a moment of profound clarity. In that fleeting instant, she realized that her escape was not just a physical departure from a place of pain, but the beginning of an emotional rebirth. Her mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. Was Bart's promise of a safe haven at his ranch merely a fleeting dream, or could it be the key to unlocking a life filled with genuine love and security? Every step towards the train platform felt like a step toward reclaiming her dignity, a defiant act of courage against a past that had sought to define her. The weight of her memories, though still heavy, began to lift just a fraction, replaced by a resolute belief that she deserved more than the life of suffering she had known. In the final moments before boarding the train, Martha paused at the threshold of the platform. The cold wind brushed against her face, and for a heartbeat, she closed her eyes, savoring the contrast between the lingering chill of the past and the warm, faint promise of the future. It was in that suspended moment that the magnitude of her decision became clear, a decision that would irrevocably alter the course of her life. With a deep, steadying breath, she stepped forward, allowing the rhythmic clatter of the train to envelop her. Her eyes, glistening with tears of both sorrow and hope, scanned the scene one last time. Every creaking beam, every hushed whisper, every shard of memory mingled with the present, all converging into a single powerful vision of escape. In that final, poignant instant, as she crossed the platform to board the train, an unspoken question lingered in the crisp morning air. What destiny awaited her on this new journey? And could the promise of a future free from violence ever truly mend the wounds of her past? The train's whistle blew, a haunting, resolute sound that echoed across the silent station. And with that, Martha Puit stepped into the unknown. The steady, rhythmic clatter of the train's wheels on the iron rails filled the air as the locomotive began its slow departure from the station. The sound was a constant reminder of the journey ahead. A journey not merely of physical distance, but one that promised to carry Martha far away from a life shrouded in pain, toward the glimmer of a new beginning. As the train chugged steadily along the tracks, the world outside transformed with each passing mile. Martha settled into her seat near the window, the view shifting from the fading familiar outlines of the small western town to the vast, open expanse of the countryside. The morning light, soft yet resolute, bathed the landscape in hues of gold and pale blue. Fields, once dormant under a thick blanket of frost, began to show subtle hints of green as the chill gave way to a gentle warmth. Distant hills and meandering streams appeared like silent witnesses to the changing seasons and the promise of renewal. The steady hum of the train merged with the ambient sounds outside, the occasional cry of a bird, the rustle of wind through barren trees, and the soft murmur of nature awakening. In this moving sanctuary, Martha's thoughts wandered back to the dark corridors of her past. With each jolt of the train, memories, sharp and bittersweet, surfaced unbidden. She recalled the oppressive silence of her old home, punctuated by the sounds of anger and the shattering of fragile objects. Those memories, heavy with sorrow and fear, pressed against her heart. Yet, as the train carried her farther from that dreadful chapter, a delicate yet persistent hope began to take root. The journey was more than a means of escape. It was the first step toward healing, a pilgrimage toward salvation. Around her, fellow passengers offered small glimpses into lives shaped by their own struggles and triumphs. An elderly man in a worn cap shared quiet words with a middle-aged woman, both nodding in silent understanding as if each carried a secret burden. A young couple, their hands intertwined, exchanged smiles that spoke of fresh starts and promises of a shared future. These brief, poignant interactions underscored a common theme. In the vast, unforgiving landscape of the frontier, every soul was on its own quest for survival and redemption. Martha listened to these snippets of conversation, their soft murmurings mingling with the clatter of the wheels, and felt a kinship with each story, a collective testament to human resilience amid hardship. Yet, amid this gentle camaraderie, Martha's inner dialogue was a tumultuous mix of reflection and yearning. She questioned whether the scars of her past could ever truly fade, whether the wounds inflicted by years of cruelty would ever mend under the gentle passage of time. The rhythmic pounding of the train seemed to echo her heartbeat, a steady reminder that life, despite its cruelty, marched onward relentlessly. As the countryside blurred past the window, the scenery became a moving canvas upon which her hopes and fears were painted in equally vivid strokes. Her mind drifted to the promise of Bart Wilson's letter, a letter that had arrived like a beacon in the darkness, offering not only a refuge from her suffering, but a vision of a life filled with love and safety. The carefully penned words had spoken of a home at Bart's ranch, a place where the warmth of genuine affection could melt the frozen remnants of her past. With each mile, as the train navigated winding tracks and crossed open fields, that promise grew stronger in her heart. Yet doubt lingered, mingling with hope. Could a single letter truly pave the way to salvation? Was it possible to leave behind the lingering terror of her past, even as the ghosts of memory threatened to resurface at every turn? The train's interior was a microcosm of the world beyond, a blend of weary souls and fleeting smiles, shared moments of vulnerability and unspoken understanding. Martha exchanged brief, knowing glances with a young woman clutching a faded photograph, or listened quietly to a soft-spoken gentleman recounting his own tale of loss and recovery. These small human connections, though transient, wove together a tapestry of collective hope and perseverance. In the midst of a harsh, indifferent landscape, every whispered story was a reminder that no one was truly alone. As the hours slipped by, the continuous cadence of the journey began to lull Martha into a reflective state. The rhythmic clatter of the wheels against the rails, the gentle hum of the engine, and the shifting vistas outside melded into a meditative soundtrack. With her eyes fixed on the ever-changing panorama beyond the glass, Martha found herself contemplating the delicate balance between past and future. The bitter memories of abuse, the echo of her stepfather's violent outbursts, and the stinging pain of loss were real and indelible, yet they were now gradually being overshadowed by the promise of something new, a life where love and hope could heal the deepest wounds. In these moments of introspection, the contrast between the frigid exterior and the warmth stirring within her was palpable. The train ride was not just a passage of time or distance. It was a transformative experience. Every mile, every fleeting glimpse of sunrise over rolling hills, carried with it the potential for rebirth. Martha felt that if she could endure the journey, if she could embrace the uncertainties of the road ahead, then perhaps the promise of Bart Wilson's words was not an illusion, but a tangible, attainable reality. As the day advanced, the sound of the train's whistle grew more insistent, a distant echoing cry that signaled the approach of a new chapter. With a mix of trepidation and anticipation, Martha's heart raced as she sensed that her journey was nearing a turning point. The interior of the train seemed to shimmer with a quiet promise, the light filtering through the window painting soft patterns on her face. A face that bore the traces of past sorrows, yet shimmered with the fragile hope of a future reborn. In that critical, contemplative moment, Martha's eyes drifted once more to the letter clutched tightly in her hand, a symbol of the promise and potential of a life transformed by love. The train's steady momentum carried her inexorably toward a destiny where every moment was a step away from the darkness of her past and a step toward the light of a new beginning. And as the distant, resonant sound of the approaching train whistle filled the air, the final note of the journey's prelude echoed, a haunting reminder that her escape was not yet complete, and that the road ahead, though uncertain, was laden with the promise of salvation and the courage to finally let go of the past. The train pulled into Sweetwater with a gentle sigh of steam and metal, ushering Martha into a world that felt both foreign and achingly familiar. As she stepped off the train, the soft glow of the early morning sun revealed the quiet charm of Sweetwater, a small town where the beauty of the western landscape met the warm embrace of community. Modest wooden storefronts lined the dusty main street, and the air was filled with the subtle fragrance of blooming wildflowers and freshly cut hay. In this peaceful haven, the relentless harshness of her past began to fade into the background, replaced by a delicate promise of renewal. Standing by the station's entrance was Bart Wilson, whose presence immediately exuded warmth and genuine kindness. With a rugged yet gentle smile, Bart extended a hand toward Martha, his eyes reflecting a compassion that seemed to reach out and soothe the ache in her soul. Dressed in a well-worn duster and a cowboy hat that had seen many suns rise and set, over the endless plains, Bart epitomized the quiet strength and resilience of the West. He was a man molded by hardship, but not defined by it. A man whose deep sense of duty and care for others shone through in every measured gesture. "Welcome to Sweetwater," he said, his voice soft, yet full of conviction. "I'm Bart Wilson. I'm glad you've made it here safely." His words, spoken with genuine sincerity, wrapped around her like a comforting blanket. In that moment, Martha felt a spark of hope, a feeling that perhaps she could finally escape the painful memories of her past and embrace the future with open arms. Bart led Martha slowly through the heart of Sweetwater, where the town revealed its understated elegance. The morning light painted the landscape in hues of gold and soft blues, casting long shadows that danced over the weathered facades of old buildings. As they strolled along the main street, Martha couldn't help but notice the gentle murmur of friendly greetings, the warm nods of the locals, and the subtle sounds of life beginning anew. The townspeople, dressed in simple yet sturdy clothing, carried themselves with a quiet dignity that resonated deeply with the spirit of the frontier. Throughout the journey, the contrast between Martha's turbulent past and the current atmosphere became increasingly apparent. Her memories of a life filled with fear and abuse in a cold, oppressive home clashed sharply with the genuine hospitality of Sweetwater. Every kind smile, every soft word, and every reassuring pat on the back from Bart and the townsfolk served as a counterpoint to the bitter echoes of her previous life. It was as if the very soul of Sweetwater was designed to heal, its gentle rhythm a stark antidote to the harsh discord of her past. In a quiet corner of a local cafe, illuminated by the tender glow of a low-burning lamp and the soft, natural light of the burgeoning day, Martha and Bart sat down for a modest meal. The clink of cutlery and the subdued murmur of conversation created a comforting soundscape that enveloped them in a cocoon of serenity. Here, Bart's gentle demeanor became even more evident as he listened intently to Martha's tentative words. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, from cautious introductions to deeper reflections about their shared dreams for the future. Bart spoke of life on the ranch with a mix of nostalgia and hope, painting vivid pictures of endless fields, cattle grazing peacefully under vast open skies, and the simple, unhurried pleasures of frontier life. Martha, in turn, found herself opening up about the shadows that had haunted her for so long. Her voice, soft and trembling at first, grew steadier as Bart's unwavering kindness encouraged her to share even the most painful memories. She spoke of the cruelty she had endured, of the suffocating atmosphere of her old home, and the lingering scars that had once threatened to consume her. Bart's eyes shone with empathy as he reached across the table, gently taking her hand in his. "You deserve a life filled with warmth and love, Martha," he murmured, his tone earnest and comforting. "You deserve to leave that pain behind and find a place where your heart can finally heal." As their bond deepened through these quiet exchanges, the cinematic quality of their surroundings enhanced every word and gesture. Outside, the town of Sweetwater revealed its understated splendor. Fields of wildflowers swayed in the soft breeze, and the rising sun cast a delicate golden glow over the sprawling countryside. The gentle interplay of light and shadow created an almost dreamlike quality, as if the very air was imbued with the promise of a new beginning. Every small detail, from the twinkle of a friendly eye to the subtle warmth of a reassuring smile, was magnified, transforming ordinary moments into poignant symbols of hope and renewal. Yet, even as the morning unfolded in a series of tender, uplifting moments, an undercurrent of uncertainty remained. While the gentle beauty of Sweetwater and Bart's kind presence nurtured a blossoming sense of security within Martha, hints of a lingering threat whispered quietly beneath the surface. In the distance, a shadow passed fleetingly across a window, and a hushed conversation among local townsfolk hinted at a rumor, an unspoken worry that all was not yet well. This subtle hint of danger, though barely perceptible, cast a fleeting pall over the otherwise warm and hopeful scene, leaving Martha with a lingering question. Could the peace of this new life be as fragile as the memories she was trying to escape? As their day together came to a close, Bart and Martha strolled along the edge of a vast field where the early light of dawn met the promise of the day. The gentle rustle of tall grasses, the soft chirp of waking birds, and the distant murmur of a bubbling creek created a serene symphony that underscored their hopeful steps toward the future. In this moment, the beauty of Sweetwater and the warmth of Bart's presence filled Martha with a cautious optimism, a belief that perhaps, for the first time in a long while, she might truly be free from the chains of her past. But just as the serenity seemed to settle in, an unexpected movement in the corner of Martha's vision pulled her attention away from the peaceful panorama. A brief, shadowy figure moved swiftly at the periphery of a nearby alley, a silent, mysterious presence that sent a shiver down her spine. Bart noticed her sudden change in expression and gently squeezed her hand, offering a silent reassurance. Yet the fleeting glimpse of that enigmatic figure left an unsettling trace of doubt in Martha's heart. In that moment, as the sun's rays began to climb higher, casting long, golden shadows over the town, Martha's resolve hardened. The promise of a better life at Bart's ranch was too precious to let fear and uncertainty undermine. With a final, determined look toward the horizon, she resolved to embrace this new beginning wholeheartedly, despite the lingering whispers of a threat that still loomed in the background. And so, as the day edged toward noon, Martha Puit, bolstered by the promise of Sweetwater's gentle hospitality and Bart Wilson's unwavering kindness, gathered her courage for the next step. With her heart pounding in anticipation and a subtle glimmer of hope igniting within her, she rose from the table. Her eyes, still reflecting the quiet sorrow of a painful past, yet brightened by the prospect of a future filled with promise, were fixed on the waiting platform outside. The distant sound of the approaching train, its whistle a herald of journeys yet to come, resonated deeply within her. In that final, electrifying moment, as Martha stepped toward the train with Bart's supportive hand in hers, the gentle clamor of Sweetwater faded into a backdrop of possibility. The soft, steady hum of the tracks mingled with the distant call of the locomotive, a poignant reminder that her journey was far from over. The promise of a new life, a chance to leave behind the echoes of violence and despair, now beckoned her forward, leaving an unspoken question suspended in the crisp air. What fate awaited her on this path to salvation, and could the love that now blossomed between her and Bart truly mend the broken fragments of her past? In the soft, flickering glow of the evening fire, the world outside seemed to pause as if holding its breath. Inside the modest wooden cabin at Sweetwater, Bart Wilson moved with a gentle urgency, tending carefully to Martha's injuries, both visible and those that lay hidden deep within her heart. The steady sizzle of a simmering stew on the stove mingled with the quiet murmur of Bart's reassuring words, creating a cocoon of solace in which Martha began the slow process of healing. Bart's touch was tender as he cleaned a shallow cut along Martha's arm, a remnant of a recent scuffle during their escape. He applied a clean cloth, soaked in warm water, with deliberate care. "There now," he murmured softly, his voice carrying a blend of concern and quiet determination. His eyes, usually so resolute, softened as he looked into hers, a silent promise that she was no longer alone. Martha could see in his gaze the reflection of his own past hardships, the battles he'd fought, and the scars he carried, both physical and emotional. In that moment, she sensed that his strength was not in denying pain, but in embracing it together, so that it might one day give way to hope. As the night deepened, the two settled near the fireplace. The gentle crackle of the logs and the warm amber light that bathed the room seemed to slow time itself. Martha, wrapped in a soft blanket, stared into the dancing flames as memories of her former life began to unfurl in a torrent of emotion. The echoes of angry voices, the shattering of fragile porcelain, and the cold, unyielding fear of living under the tyranny of Charles Mills invaded her mind. Yet, as she listened to Bart speak in hushed tones about his own past, a childhood marked by loss, a youth of hard lessons learned on the unforgiving plains, she felt a kinship that bridged the distance between their scars. "I used to think that strength meant shutting out the world, hiding behind a wall of silence," Bart confessed quietly, his eyes reflecting both sorrow and hope. "But I've learned that true strength is in facing our demons, in letting someone in even when it hurts." His words, laden with vulnerability, resonated deeply with Martha. She reached out, her hand trembling as it brushed against his calloused fingers. Their touch, brief and electric, carried the weight of all the unspoken pain and the promise of a future where they could finally be understood. Martha's mind wandered as she recalled the isolation of her past, the relentless nights filled with tears, the overwhelming burden of shame and fear. But now, in the warm, safe embrace of this new beginning, a gentle transformation was taking root. The fierce loneliness that had once defined her existence began to soften, replaced by a budding belief that she might at last find a measure of peace. In the tender interplay of light and shadow across their faces, she saw a reflection of her own quiet determination to rise above the darkness. Their conversation drifted into long, thoughtful silences, punctuated by gentle laughter and soft reassurances. Bart recounted stories of life on the ranch, The serene mornings when the dew glistened on endless fields of wildflowers, the quiet moments of reflection as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the simple, unspoken joys of sharing life with someone who truly cared. Martha listened intently, her heart both aching for the life she had lost and yearning for the one that might yet be hers. With every word, she felt the weight of her past gradually lift, replaced by the dawning realization that her future could be defined not by the horrors of yesterday, but by the tender promise of tomorrow. Close-ups of their intertwined hands, the soft crinkle of Bart's eyes as he smiled gently, and the subtle, knowing look in Martha's gaze told a story of connection and redemption. The gentle rhythm of their dialogue, set against the backdrop of a world softened by the glow of firelight, created a cinematic tableau of healing. Each moment was a delicate dance of vulnerability and strength, a testament to the fact that even the deepest wounds could begin to mend when nurtured by genuine care. Yet, even as trust and recovery began to blossom, the night held its own secrets. The soft sound of a knock on the door, barely audible over the crackling of the fire, startled them. Martha's heart skipped a beat as the sound repeated, a hesitant, rhythmic tapping that spoke of something unknown. Bart paused, his hand still, resting on hers, and exchanged a worried glance with Martha. The unexpected noise sent a ripple of unease through the quiet room, a stark reminder that while their immediate sanctuary was filled with hope, the world beyond the cabin remained uncertain and potentially dangerous. For a moment, the room fell into a heavy silence, broken only by the low murmur of the wind outside and the persistent, enigmatic tapping at the door. Martha's thoughts flitted between the healing warmth of the fire and the lingering fear that had followed her for so long. Was this an intruder? A messenger? Or perhaps a harbinger of the unresolved dangers that still lurked in the shadows of her past? Bart rose slowly, his expression turning from tender reassurance to guarded determination. "Stay here," he said softly to Martha, his tone carrying both a promise of protection and a hint of apprehension. With careful steps, he moved toward the door, each creak of the wooden floor echoing like a drumbeat in the tense silence. Martha watched him go, her heart pounding in a mix of hope and dread. Every fiber of her being wished that this night would end with only the comforting glow of the fire, with nothing more than the promise of a new dawn. As Bart reached for the door, the mysterious tapping grew louder, more insistent, an echo of the outside world's relentless uncertainties intruding upon their fragile moment of recovery. In that charged cinematic instant, with the warm light of the fire casting dancing shadows on the walls and the sound of the unknown reverberating through the room, Martha's heart tightened in anxious anticipation. The question that hung in the air was simple yet profound. Could the newfound bond and healing they had begun to build withstand the ever-present threats of a world that was as unpredictable as it was harsh? And as Bart's hand reached out to open the door, leaving Martha to wonder what fate awaited them on the other side, the night seemed to hold its breath, setting the stage for the next, uncertain chapter of their journey together. Darkness had settled over Sweetwater like a heavy shroud as unsettling whispers of revenge began to ripple through the wind. Under the cloak of night, hidden among the rugged silhouettes of distant mesas and sparse clusters of scrubby pines, an outlaw gang, more formidable and vengeful than any seen before, was gathering strength. They had returned with a singular purpose, to exact retribution on those they deemed responsible for past defeats. The air, once serene with the promise of a new dawn, now vibrated with a low, ominous hum, a prelude to the storm of violence that was about to engulf the peaceful town. In the cool twilight, the soft murmur of conversation and the gentle clinking of glasses at the local saloon gave way to furtive glances and hushed rumors. A few of the townsfolk, faces drawn with worry, spoke in low tones about the nefarious gang whose reputation for ruthlessness had spread like wildfire. Their eyes darted nervously as they mentioned how these outlaws, scarred by old grudges, had been spotted riding on the horizon. Every whispered word intensified the mounting tension that gripped Sweetwater, turning the familiar streets into a landscape of looming dread. Bart Wilson, whose kindness had kindled a fragile hope in Martha's heart, now stood at the forefront of the impending crisis. Determination etched across his rugged features, he quickly rallied those willing to defend their home. "We won't let them tear apart what we've built here," he declared, his voice steady despite the fear that lurked in every shadow. Martha, though trembling, stood beside him, her eyes fierce with resolve. In that charged moment, the bond between them, forged through shared pain and healing, shone as a beacon against the darkness. The confrontation began suddenly. Out of the inky blackness, the outlaw gang burst forth on a cloud of dust and howling wind. Their horses, muscular and battle-hardened, kicked up plumes of dirt as they charged along the main road. The air exploded with the crack of gunfire, each shot echoing like a death knell across the still night. Bart's voice rang out over the chaos, directing townsfolk to take cover and ready their arms. Martha, clutching her small rifle, felt her, heart hammering in her chest as adrenaline surged through her veins. The ensuing battle was a maelstrom of motion and sound. In the chaotic flurry, horses reared and galloped wildly, their hooves pounding the hardened earth, while the sharp staccato of gunshots punctuated the night. Bart led the counterattack, his eyes ablaze with the twin fires of duty and love. In one breathless moment, he dived behind a battered wagon, returning fire with calculated precision. His figure, silhouetted by sporadic flashes from muzzle bursts, became a moving emblem of defiance. Martha fought with every ounce of strength she could muster. Though fear gnawed at her, she recalled the promise of a new life, a life where she could finally be free from the tyranny of her past. Every shot she fired, every step she took, was a declaration that she would not be defeated. The intensity of the battle was heightened by the vivid interplay of light and shadow. Slow-motion close-ups captured the raw terror in an outlaw's eyes, the fierce concentration etched on Bart's weathered face, and the unwavering determination glistening in Martha's own. The cinematic quality of the scene turned each explosion of gunfire and every desperate maneuver into a visual symphony of courage and despair. Throughout the skirmish, the bond between Martha and Bart grew even stronger. In a brief but poignant exchange, as an enemy rider closed in dangerously fast, Bart grabbed Martha's hand, his grip firm and reassuring. Their eyes locked in a moment of mutual understanding, the silent promise that they would protect each other at any cost. "Hold on, Martha," Bart called out over the cacophony, his voice both a command and a comfort. Her nod, though slight, conveyed volumes. She would stand by him, no matter the peril. As the battle raged, time seemed to slow for fleeting moments. A stray bullet whizzed past, the sound of its impact echoing like a dissonant note in a grand, tragic opera. In one such instance, the camera of fate appeared to linger on the expressions of the combatants. A close-up of an outlaw's panicked eyes, the glistening sweat on Bart's furrowed brow, and the steely resolve in Martha's determined gaze. These images, ephemeral yet powerful, captured the essence of a fight where survival was measured not only in bullets and blood, but in the resilience of the human spirit. However, the tide of battle was as unpredictable as the shifting western winds. Amid the swirling chaos, a stray shot found its mark. In a single heart-stopping instant, Bart staggered backward, a pained cry escaping his lips. The world seemed to hold its breath as his strong frame crumpled, and for a moment, the battle paused in a haunting silence. Martha's heart pounded in terror as she rushed to his side, her eyes wide with fear and desperation. The sight of Bart, once the epitome of unwavering strength, now lying wounded on the cold, unforgiving ground, sent a shiver of dread down her spine. The dramatic pause was suffused with cinematic intensity. The slow-motion capture of Bart's falling figure, the anguished expression on Martha's face illuminated by the intermittent flash of gunfire, and the eerie quiet that descended, as if the night itself mourned the potential loss of a hero. In that vulnerable, pivotal moment, Every heartbeat seemed to echo the fragility of hope and the perilous edge upon which their future now balanced. "Bart!" Martha cried, her voice a raw mix of anguish and fierce determination. She cradled his head in her arms, her hands trembling as they sought to offer comfort amid the chaos. The pain in his eyes was a silent plea, a desperate request for her to hold on, to not let the darkness win. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of her fear. Yet, even as she clung to him, the battle raged. On around them, the sound of gunfire and shouts a grim reminder that their moment of vulnerability was but a fleeting interlude in an ongoing war. The scene was charged with an almost unbearable tension. The relentless barrage of violence had left the town of Sweetwater trembling on the brink of despair. And now, with Bart gravely injured, the very future of their shared dream hung in a precarious balance. The cinematic lens captured every detail, the desperate plea in Martha's eyes, the shallow, labored breaths of Bart, and the indistinct, looming figures of the outlaws in the background, their faces masked in shadow. As Martha pressed close to Bart, fighting back tears and fear, the overwhelming realization struck her. The battle for Sweetwater, for their future, was far from over. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, leaving her with a single, piercing question that would haunt her every heartbeat. Could their love and resilience overcome this dark, sudden twist of fate? And as the distant, mournful wail of a siren, or perhaps the echo of approaching footsteps, filled the air, the fragile sanctuary of Sweetwater's night was once again threatened by the relentless pull of destiny. In that final, heart-pounding moment, with Bart's injured form cradled in her arms and the silhouettes of the outlaws looming ominously on the horizon, the fate of their newly forged bond teetered on a knife's edge. The night, heavy with uncertainty and raw emotion, promised that the struggle for survival was only beginning, and that the scars of the past, as well as the wounds of the present, might yet decide the course of their future. Inside the quiet, secluded cabin, the world outside seemed to have fallen silent after the fierce battle. The only sounds were the soft crackle of the fire and the gentle rustle of the wind outside, creating a cocoon of fragile peace around Martha and Bart. Bart lay on a rough-hewn cot near the small, worn wooden table, his face pale and contorted, in pain. A deep wound, fresh and bleeding, marked his side, a harsh reminder of the violent clash that had just rocked Sweetwater. Despite his injuries, his eyes still burned with a stubborn spark, a testament to the warrior he had always been. Martha knelt by his side, her heart aching as she carefully tended to his wounds. With trembling hands, she cleaned the injury and applied fresh bandages soaked in warm water, her touch gentle yet determined. Every movement was a silent act of defiance against the darkness that had tried to claim them. "Hold on, Bart," she whispered, her voice wavering with emotion. "I won't let you go. I promise we'll get through this. Together." In that moment, the flickering light of the fire bathed their faces in a soft amber glow, making the small room seem like a haven against the harsh world outside. Bart's gaze met Martha's as he fought to stay conscious. His eyes, though clouded with pain, shimmered with gratitude and a quiet strength. You're my only hope, Martha," he managed to say in a raspy whisper. His words, fragile as they were, resonated deeply with her. She could feel the weight of every sacrifice, every hurt that had brought them to this point. Yet also, the undeniable power of love that was slowly mending their shattered hearts. As the night deepened, the cabin became a world of its own. Outside, the raging storm had given way to an uneasy calm, while inside, the steady warmth of the fire wrapped around them like a soft embrace. Martha sat on the floor beside Bart's cot, her eyes never leaving his. In the silence punctuated by the fire's crackle, they began to speak, not with loud proclamations, but in gentle, heartfelt murmurs that seemed to blend with the quiet hum of the night. I remember the days when I thought survival was all that mattered, Bart said, softly, his voice laced with regret and lingering pain. I built walls so high around my heart, thinking that would protect me from every hurt. But then I met you, and I realized that even the strongest fortress can crumble when love finds a way in. His words, simple yet profound, hung in the May air as if suspended in time. Martha's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and she reached out to gently stroke his cheek. "Bart," she murmured, "I've known fear all my life. The fear of being trapped in a cycle of pain, of never escaping the ghosts of my past. But here, with you, I feel something different. I feel hope. I feel like maybe I can learn to trust again." Her voice broke slightly, revealing the depth of her inner struggle, a blend of vulnerability and fierce determination. Their hands met in the soft glow of the firelight, and in that touch was a promise of unwavering support and shared destiny. Martha continued, her tone earnest. "I promise you, Bart, I'll never let go. I'll be here, through every storm and every dark night. We'll face our demons together, and our love will be the light that guides us out of this darkness." In that moment, the two souls, scarred by past battles and bruised by life's relentless cruelty, found solace in their mutual commitment, a fragile yet unbreakable bond forged in the fires of suffering and redemption. The cabin, with its simple furnishings and the steady hum of the dying fire, became the stage for their intimate dialogue. Slow, cinematic shots of the fire's flickering light revealed the raw emotions etched on their faces, the tears that glistened like pearls in Martha's determined eyes, the tender, pained smile on Bart's lips as he clung to the promise of recovery. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of burning wood, the gentle rhythmic beat of their shared hearts, and the soft murmur of whispered assurances. As hours passed, their conversation turned to dreams of a future that seemed as distant as the stars outside the small window. Bart spoke of his ranch, a place of endless fields and golden sunsets, where love and peace could finally flourish. Martha listened intently, her heart swelling with the possibility of a life untouched by the cruelty of her past. "I want to believe that there's a place where we can be free," she said softly, "where we can leave behind all the pain and start anew." Her voice, though filled with longing, carried an undeniable note of resolve. In response, Bart squeezed her hand gently, his eyes reflecting a mix of hope and determination. "We will find that place, Martha," he promised, his tone firm yet tender. "Our journey may be hard, and the scars we bear might never fully fade, but together we can build something beautiful. We'll make our own light in the darkness." His words were like a balm to her wounded spirit, soothing the deep, lingering aches of a past marred by violence and loss. As they sat there in the quiet intimacy of their shared refuge, the outside world seemed to vanish, its cold, indifferent clamor replaced by the gentle symphony of whispered promises and the steady rhythmic pulse of hope. Yet, even in this tender cocoon of healing and love, a subtle tension lay beneath the surface, a reminder that the scars of their past were not so easily forgotten, and that the path to redemption was fraught with lingering dangers. Just as Martha allowed herself to lean into the warmth of Bart's embrace, a sudden, unexpected sound shattered the fragile calm. A soft but distinct knock on the wooden door echoed through the cabin, reverberating off the walls and stirring a ripple of unease. The sound, incongruent with the serene intimacy of the moment, sent a jolt of alertness through both of them. Martha's heart pounded as she exchanged a worried glance with Bart, a silent question passing between them. Could this be another harbinger of the darkness they thought they had left behind? In that charged moment, as the firelight danced around, their tender, intertwined hands and the shadows on the wall seemed to whisper of threats yet unseen. Martha's resolve wavered for just a heartbeat. But even as uncertainty crept in, the warmth of their love shone through, a defiant beacon against the encroaching chill of the unknown. With a deep, Steadying breath, Bart moved toward the door, his steps measured yet cautious. Martha, clutching his hand, felt the weight of both hope and fear in that silent pause. As the knock grew louder, more insistent, the night outside deepened into a dark and mysterious void. The soft glow of the fire flickered, casting long, trembling shadows on the wooden floor. In that final, heart-stopping moment, with the sound of the mysterious knock echoing through the stillness, the promise of their newfound sanctuary was left hanging in the balance, a fragile piece threatened by the unknown. And so, in the warm, tender glow of that small cabin, amidst whispered promises and the echo of a mysterious disturbance at the door, Bart and Martha stood united, vowing to let their love be the guiding light through the darkness. Yet, even as their hearts beat in unison, the lingering sound of that knock served as a chilling reminder that the journey of healing was far from over, leaving them and the world watching, in suspense of what fate would bring next. Returning to Sweetwater felt like emerging from a long, stormy night into the gentle embrace of a new day. The town, bathed in the warm light of a rising sun, welcomed Bart and Martha with open arms. Neighbors gathered on quiet streets, their faces alight with admiration and relief, as if the couple's safe return had mended the very soul of Sweetwater. Weathered storefronts, painted in soft pastels, and well-tended gardens testified to a community that, despite the harshness of frontier life, still believed in renewal and hope. As Bart and Martha made their way through the town, the people they encountered offered kind words and gestures that soothed the lingering echoes of past hardships. "Welcome home, Bart. We've all missed you," said one elderly neighbor, her eyes twinkling with warmth. Children ran past, their laughter mingling with the gentle rustling of leaves, while shopkeepers nodded respectfully. The collective sense of gratitude was palpable, a quiet celebration of resilience and the triumph of love over adversity. In the heart of Sweetwater, the community had rallied together to repair the scars left by recent turmoil. Neighbors painted faded signs, mended broken fences, and cleared debris from streets, transforming the town into a vibrant tapestry of cooperation and renewal. Bart, once known solely for his strength on the battlefield, now devoted himself to rebuilding not only his own life but also the town that had become his sanctuary. Side by side with Martha, he worked alongside community members, his hands steady, even as his heart still bore the memories of past battles. Martha, too, felt the tender healing power of Sweetwater, the daily acts of restoration, the soft clink of tools, the steady rhythm of community labor, and the genuine smiles of those who had welcomed her, began to ease the deep wounds of her past. Each repaired window, every repainted door, served as a small victory over the isolation and fear that had once defined her days. In the midst of this collective effort, Martha found herself slowly shedding the shadows of her painful history. The scars on her heart, though not erased, began to transform into symbols of survival and hope. During the crisp, clear mornings that followed, Sweetwater revealed its gentle, enduring beauty. The first light of dawn spilled across vast fields, where wildflowers danced in a soft breeze, and the once dormant earth awoke under a tapestry of vibrant colors. It was a scene of quiet, almost magical transformation, the frost on the grass slowly melting away to reveal lush greenery, the chirping of birds harmonizing with the distant call of a lonesome train whistle. In these serene moments, Bart and Martha would often steal away from the bustle of the rebuilding efforts to share quiet, intimate walks along the main street, their hands interlaced in silent communion. One such morning, as the sun rose in a blaze of warm oranges and gentle pinks, Bart and Martha paused at the edge of a blooming meadow. The sight was breathtaking, an endless expanse of wildflowers swaying gently in the light breeze, each petal a vivid promise of life renewed. They stood together in silence, taking in the scene, as if every ray of sunlight was washing away the remnants of pain and despair. Martha's eyes shone with a mixture of lingering sorrow and burgeoning hope, while Bart's steady gaze reflected his unwavering belief in the future they were beginning to build. In these tender moments, the couple's connection deepened through quiet conversation and shared dreams. Under the soft glow of a fading sunrise, Bart would speak of the ranch he had built, a place of rugged beauty, where every sunrise promised a new beginning, and every sunset whispered of enduring love. Martha, her voice soft and reflective, would share her own hopes for a life where fear was replaced by security, and where the past was no longer a chain, but a stepping stone to a brighter future. Their dialogue was simple, yet profound, filled with promises of support, healing, and the unyielding power of love. "Every day," Martha whispered one morning, her eyes fixed on the horizon, "I feel a little lighter, as if the pain of yesterday is slowly melting away with the dawn. I'm beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, there is a future where we can both be free." Bart squeezed her hand gently, his response calm and sure. "Our love is our strength, Martha. It's what will guide us through every storm, every shadow of doubt. This is our new beginning." Their heartfelt words were punctuated by cinematic details, the soft rustle of autumn leaves, the glistening dew on newly awakened fields, and the tender interplay of light and shadow across their faces. Close-up moments captured the subtle expressions of hope and resilience, a quiet smile, a gentle touch, a shared glance that spoke of a future brimming with possibility. These intimate vignettes, bathed in the gentle light of the early day, created a tapestry of recovery that was as visually stunning as it was emotionally stirring. Yet, even amid this burgeoning sense of renewal, a whisper of uncertainty lingered in the background. In hushed conversations among the townsfolk, there were murmurs of unresolved threats, a subtle disquieting note that not all wounds had yet healed. Some speculated about shadows lurking on the outskirts of Sweetwater, or the possibility of old adversaries returning to disrupt the fragile peace. Though these voices were few and far between, they cast a faint, lingering doubt that underscored the journey ahead. As the day unfolded, Bart and Martha found themselves drawn closer by the shared task of rebuilding and healing. Their days were filled with the hard work of repairing not only physical structures, but also the invisible barriers that had long separated them from a life of genuine happiness. Together, they patched up old fences, cleared debris from the town square, and helped neighbors restore their homes, all the while finding solace in the collective spirit of a community determined to rise from the ashes. The process was slow, and at times grueling, but every small act of kindness and every repaired corner of Sweetwater served as a reminder that hope, however fragile, was ever present. The transformation of the town mirrored their own internal journey, a gradual, heartfelt transition from the dark corridors of a painful past to the bright, promising light of a new future. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows, over a town now vibrant with life and the hum of rebuilding, Bart and Martha paused on the steps of an old, restored storefront. The golden light bathed the scene in a soft, almost ethereal glow, and for a moment, the weight of the past seemed to lift, replaced by a serene optimism. With smiles that spoke of shared triumphs and quiet victories, they looked into each other's eyes, a silent acknowledgement that the road to healing, though not without its challenges, had finally begun to smooth out. In that deeply poignant moment, with the gentle murmur of the evening and the warmth of the community enfolding them like a protective embrace, Martha felt a quiet certainty take root in her heart. The echoes of the pain and suffering that had once defined her were slowly giving way to the promise of a future built on love, resilience, and mutual support. Yet, even as they celebrated the progress they had made, an undercurrent of mystery and cautious anticipation lingered, a subtle reminder that life, with all its beauty and hardship, was an ever-unfolding story. As the night deepened, a hush fell over the town, a silence that was both comforting and foreboding. In a soft, measured voice, Bart turned to Martha and said, "This is only the beginning." His words, simple yet powerful, hung in the air, leaving an unspoken promise of adventures yet to come and challenges that would test the strength of their newfound love. And so, as the stars emerged one by one in the cool, clear sky over Sweetwater, Bart and Martha embraced their future with hearts full of hope and a lingering, bittersweet awareness that the journey of healing and renewal was far from over. The morning sun rose over Sweetwater like a promise reborn, bathing the town in a gentle cascade of warm golden light. Bart and Martha, now embraced by the community that had long suffered through hardship and despair, found themselves at the heart of a transformation that was as visible as it was heartfelt. Neighbors greeted them with smiles, warm handshakes, and words of encouragement, as if welcoming long-lost family members back into the fold. The once fragile town, scarred by past turmoil, now shimmered with the quiet hope of new beginnings, a place where love and resilience had found a home. In the bustling town square, where the weathered storefronts had been freshly painted and the streets swept clean, the atmosphere was vibrant with renewal. Local farmers set up their stalls, displaying bountiful harvests and vibrant wildflowers that had begun to bloom along the roadside. The community's spirit was palpable in every shared laugh and every gentle nod of acknowledgement. It was here that Bart and Martha began to truly integrate into Sweetwater's life, each day a step toward building a future that honored both their past struggles and their newfound hope. Bart worked tirelessly alongside his neighbors, lending his strong, capable hands to repair fences, clear debris, and rebuild homes. His once battle-worn exterior now seemed softened by the kindness of those around him and the gentle smiles of his fellow townsfolk. With every task completed, he not only mended the physical structures of the community, but also helped heal the collective wounds that had long defined this rugged corner of the West. Martha, too, found solace in the supportive embrace of Sweetwater. As she engaged with the local seamstresses, cooks, and shopkeepers, she discovered a network of compassionate souls who understood the meaning of hardship and the beauty of second chances. In the quiet moments of the day, when the work paused, and the soft hum of community life filled the air, Bart and Martha would steal away to share intimate conversations. In the early hours, as the sun climbed higher, they would take gentle walks along fields dotted with wildflowers that swayed in the tender breeze. The sight was almost magical, an endless sea of blossoms stretching toward the horizon, each delicate, petal a symbol of renewal and possibility. In these moments, their hands would intertwine, and every shared glance, every tender smile, spoke volumes of the strength of their bond. It was as if the beauty of the natural world had conspired to mirror the quiet, enduring love blossoming between them. Over time, their days were filled with the gentle cadence of healing. Bart's careful ministrations, whether tending to the lingering bruise or simply offering a supportive word when Martha's past threatened to resurface, became the foundation of their renewed lives. Martha's once fractured spirit began to mend under his steady care and the nurturing support of the community. She started to see herself not merely as a victim of a painful past, but as a survivor, poised to embrace a bright, hopeful future. In her quiet moments, as she sat by the window watching the town come alive with activity, she would reflect on the transformation that had taken root within her. A metamorphosis from despair to determination, from isolation to belonging. The healing process was not instantaneous. It was a slow, deliberate journey, marked by small victories and quiet acts of courage. At community gatherings, Martha listened intently as elders recounted stories of overcoming adversity, and in their shared memories, she found a sense of kinship that transcended her own pain. The process of recovery was woven into the fabric of Sweetwater itself. Each repaired building, each freshly painted sign, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of community support. Evenings in Sweetwater were especially poignant. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the town would come alive with soft lamplight and the gentle murmur of conversations. Bart and Martha would often sit together on the porch of their modest home, the cool night air filled with the sweet scent of blooming jasmine and the comforting glow of oil lamps. In these moments, their love shone with an intensity that belied the hardships they had endured. With each shared cup of tea, each subtle touch and lingering kiss, they wove together a tapestry of trust and devotion, a promise that the scars of the past would not dictate the future they were building together. One crisp, serene evening, as a gentle breeze stirred the leaves and carried the soft echoes of laughter from neighboring homes, Bart turned to Martha and said, "I know we've been through so much, but look around us. This is the life we deserve. This is our new beginning." His voice, firm yet tender, resonated deeply within her. Martha, her eyes glistening with a mixture of lingering sorrow and blossoming hope, nodded slowly, the weight of the past lifting just a little with each word. "Yes, Bart," she replied softly. "I believe in us. I believe that love can heal, even the deepest wounds." In that quiet, heartfelt exchange, the essence of their transformation was laid bare, a promise of healing, of renewal, and of a future filled with promise and enduring love. Yet, even as Sweetwater embraced their return and celebrated the resilience of its people, an undercurrent of mystery lingered in the air, a subtle reminder that not all was settled. In hushed conversations around town, a few whispered of shadows moving on the outskirts, or of rumors that hinted at unresolved threats lurking beyond the borders of their newfound haven. Though these murmurs were faint, they cast a slight pall over the otherwise radiant optimism of the day. Nevertheless, Bart and Martha chose to focus on the beauty of the present, their shared dreams acting as a shield against the uncertainty of what lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks, life in Sweetwater gradually assumed a comforting rhythm. The community, now united in both celebration and shared purpose, became a source of strength for Bart and Martha. Together, they planned small improvements to their home, envisioned a future where laughter replaced tears, and worked side by side with neighbors to ensure that Sweetwater remained a sanctuary of hope and renewal. In the quiet stillness of one radiant morning, as the sun cast a warm, golden glow over a field of swaying wildflowers, Bart and Martha stood hand in hand at the edge of the town. Their eyes met, and in that simple, unspoken exchange, they acknowledged that they had both emerged from a long, dark journey. The transformation was complete, not because all the pain had vanished, but because they had learned to embrace their scars as symbols of survival and strength. Bart's steady gaze and Martha's soft, hopeful smile promised a future where every sunrise was a new beginning, every sunset a reminder of how far they had come. And as the gentle breeze carried the soft murmur of voices and the distant echo of a train whistle, a reminder that life was always moving forward, Bart turned to Martha and whispered, "This is only the beginning." His words, simple yet profound, resonated in the air, leaving an open-ended promise that their journey, their love, and the ever-unfolding story of Sweetwater would continue to bloom, even in the face of life's uncertainties. In that final, tender moment, as the stars began to twinkle overhead and the night embraced the town in a serene hush, the gentle, persistent sound of the wind and the soft glow of the lamplight suggested that while the past had been painful, the future was bright and full of possibilities. Sweetwater had become not just a place of refuge, but a home where hearts could heal, and where every moment was a testament to the enduring power of love and community. With hearts full of hope and a renewed sense of purpose, Bart and Martha stepped forward into the future. Their journey was a celebration of life, a delicate balance of healing and resilience, of whispered promises, and the gentle, enduring echo of dreams yet to be fulfilled. And as the night wore on, leaving a lingering sense of wonder and possibility, one thought remained clear in their minds. The road ahead was long, but together they would travel it, hand in hand, toward a future that was theirs to create.